Hello, my name is Lauren, and today I'll be talking to you about What Saves Us by Bruce Weigl. Bruce Weigl was born on January 27th, 1949 in Lorain, Ohio. Weigl enlisted in the United States Army shortly after his 18th birthday and spent about 4 years in service. He served in the Vietnam War from 1967 to December 1968 and received the Bronze Star. When he returned to the United States, Weigl obtained a bachelor's degree in Oberlin College and a Master of Arts degree in Writing and American British Literature from the University of New Hampshire. From 1975 to 1976, Weigl was an instructor at Lorain Community College in Elyria, Ohio. Weigl's first full-length collection of poems was called A Romance, which was published in 1979. He received a PhD from the University of Utah in 1979, and he was an assistant professor of English at the University of Arkansas, and later held the same position at Old Dominion University. During the 1980s, Weigl published two more poetry collections, one called The Monkey Wars and the other called The Song of Napalm, which was a book that we recently just read. In 1986, Weigl became an associate professor of English at Pennsylvania State University and later promoted to a professor of English. In 1999, he then published two more poetry collections, one being What Saves Us. Weigl's first award was a prize from the American Academy of Poets in 1979. He received two Pushcart Prizes, a Patterson Poetry Prize, and a Yaddo Foundation Fellowship Award. Weigl was awarded to the Breadloaf Fellowship in Poetry in 1981 and was awarded a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts in 1988 for the arts of creative writing. He was also nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in 1988 for Song of Napalm. Weigl additionally served as the president of Associated Writing Programs. However, today I'm going to be talking to you about What Saves Us, and Bruce Weigl published this on January 1st, 1990. Weigl published this book on January 1st, 1992. It was a winner of 2006 Lorain Foundation Award for Poetry. Bruce writes this out of uncompromising memory and vision. In this book, Weigl uses a narrative voice throughout most of his poems. As readers follow Weigl's speaker from a cafe of Boro in Las Americas to dear bed made under the apple tree. They discover these jumps from a place-to-place process, the same way as he jumps from memory to memory. Weigl creates a personnel within this book that he's looking for forgiveness. Throughout the book, the poem goes from being about a woman in search of forgiveness for the violence that he has committed during the Vietnam War. Throughout this book, we can infer that the speaker has already forgiven himself for his actions, thus releasing the emptiness which isn't tolerated within himself and putting it in open for the readers to shift in the order to make their own judgment about this forgiveness that he has committed in the Vietnam War. So now I'm just going to read the poem called What Saves Us from this book called What Saves Us. We were wrapped around each other in the back of my father's car, parked in the empty lot of high school of our failures. The sweat on her neck like oil. The next morning I would leave for the war, and I thought I had something coming for that. I thought to myself that I would not die, never having been inside her long body. I pulled her skirt above my waist like an umbrella, inside and out by the store. I pulled her cotton panties up as high as she could stand. I was on fire. Heaven was in sight. We were drowning on our tongues, and I tried to tear my pants off when she stopped so suddenly. We were surrounded only by the shuddering and the school bells grinding in the empty halls. We reached to find something, a silver crucifix on the silver chain, a tiny Savior's head hanging, and stakes through the hands of my feet. She put it around my neck and held me so long, the black wings of my heart were calm. We were not always right about what we think will save us. I thought that dragging the angel down would save me, but instead I carried the crucifix in my pocket and rubbed it on my face and lips nights that rockets roared in. People die sometimes so near you, you feel them struggling to cross over, the deep untangling of one body from another. So now I'm just going to see what Bruce has to infer about this poem and what we can infer about this poem and what Bruce is trying to tell us. Throughout this poem, we can see that Weigl is still a young boy and he has just graduated from high school. Throughout the first half of the poem, we can infer that he is still in his immature stage before he heads off to the Vietnam War. He believes that making love to this woman may save him, that making love will ensure his safety in the war. He believes that he must make love to the woman because he may die in the war. In some ways, the narrator also seems to be a stereotypical Vietnam soldier. And also, he is very young and barely a high school graduate. He is impatient, and the phrase, the empty lot of a high school of our failures, probably describes his life at this point. Like most young soldiers, he thinks the life is immediate and also in physical terms. In this poem, What Saves Us, the two situations that are being compared is that the narrator attempts to make love to this woman the night before he ships out to war and also surviving that war. We can also see his fear and anxiety throughout this poem. The narrator believes that making love to this young woman, that if he would die, he refused to do so, never made love to her. The past between him refers to as the parking lot of his high school for failures. That line, we can ensure that enlisting was one of the few choices upon him upon graduation. The act of making love may remind him that he is fully alive and gives him a sense that he would be protected from death, which allows us to infer that he is frightened about what will happen in war. So now I'm just going to analyze each line and what it means. So in the line, the next morning I would leave for the war, and I thought to myself, I would not die, never having been inside her body. From these lines, we can infer that enlisting was one of the few choices upon his graduation, that this act of making love to this woman, that he is fully alive, and gives him a sense that he will be protected from death, which allows us to then infer that he is frightened about what will happen during the war. We can see here that he is frightened about his death and frightened about dying, that before, if he dies during the war, that he must make love to this woman. And then the next line, the tiny Savior's head hanging the stakes through his hands and his feet. We can infer here that with the end of the passionate love between the two, the young woman gives the narrator a crucifix, which represents Jesus nailed to the cross. This might indicate the narrator at the moment also feels that perhaps that the war will lead him to his own sacrifice and will lead him to his own death. The poet refers to the title, What Saves Us. And with this gift of the crucifix and the deep, long hug that the woman gives him, the narrator then feels comfort. He feels safe from this crucifix, and he feels safe from the woman. And then the lines that say, my heart's black wings were calm. At this point, we notice that his fear has been released. These lines also provide a powerful contrast to the image of the Savior, which is referred to as an angel, who wanted to drag him down to save him. And then the lines, we are not always right about what we think will save us. I think that this line can infer to those who have lived a while, or for those who have fought during the Vietnam War. Those who have fought may reflect on this and think that they may thought the same thing too when they were heading into war, just as Bruce Weigl did. This line can also be referred to as a turning point. As the readers read this, they may stop and think about what they may think will save them, especially if people are thinking about going off to the war. They may think before they head off if something will save them before they actually head off to the war. And then the lines, I thought that dragging the angel down that night would save me. At this point in the poem, the narrator reminisces about the time spent in the back seat of his father's car. The girl he was with, he refers to as an angel. So in this line, he literally means he thought that the girl that he was with would literally save him. He thought of this girl as an angel and thought that this angel would save him during the war. And then the lines, in my pocket and rubbed it on my face and lips, nights that rockets poured in. In these lines, he finds that there is something so spiritual that he carries in the form of a crucifix, that instead of his memory of making love to the girl, he deepens on this gift which is carried So in these lines, he not only thinks about making love to this woman, but he thinks about the gift that she gave her, and the last time that he saw her, and the last time that he saw in his last memory of the woman was when she gave him this crucifix before he left for the war. And the lines, people die sometimes so near you, you feel them struggling to cross over. We can assume here that he is saved when he has written this poem. He commits to all the ravages about the war and around him. And here we also know that knowing that death is very close to him. In these lines we know, and he's trying to tell us that even though there was so much violence in the war, that death was very close to him at this point. And then the lines, the deep untangling of one's body from another. Ironically, the poem starts out with the images of the tangled bodies of the lovers in the car. And the poem also ends here with the tangled bodies of war. Here we can infer that the spirit of the war was a struggle, and also as a soldier's spirit has struggled at the beginning, but at this time it is also a struggle. The struggle that comes from spotting through the dead and wounded bodies around him, while the spirits of the dead try to cross over. And throughout this poem, we can assume that, and we can see that this poem was not only a war poem, but also a life poem. This poem has been brought to us as a life poem of Bruce Weigl, and especially the last three lines, which read, and anyone who has experienced a death and someone as close as a death can understand that the lines, the deep untangling of one's body from another, that it must be done before we can move on with life. So in conclusion, we can see that throughout this poem, Bruce Weigl is more than just a war poet. We can see that the true thoughts and feelings of Bruce before he has entered the war and what he feels throughout the war. In this poem, we can really see the emotions of Bruce through words. Thank you.